Hi guys, Ken Smith Fishing. Video 23 in the Great Bass Boat Search of 2020-2021. We're going to grade the Skeeter FXR today, the FXR21. Now, if you've not watched any of these videos, there's a playlist right there. You can go check them out. This is the 11th boat we've looked at. We've still got Nitro, another Bass Cat, Gambler when they get out, Allison, Falcon, Ballistic. So there's still several more boats to go through. But I've learned so much in this process. I've really enjoyed it. And hey guys, and so we're going to grade the Skeeter FXR today. So I'm not going to go through the grading. By the way, check it out. I got really fancy with my graphics here. I figured out how to inlay a picture behind it. Isn't that cool? So proud of myself when I figured that out. So a same grading schedule we've used for every single boat, and as we've talked about, you know, when you score well in one thing, well, let's just talk about performance, for example. The one thing I've learned in this process is, barring a radical design, and when I say that, a tunnel hull or some other type of design like that, in a traditional bass boat, the only two ways to go faster is to make it skinnier or lighter. And if you do either one of those, there's consequences. So, kind of seen that across boats overall, which is why we've still not had a boat score above, I think, 81 at this point. But that's still a great score. So, so let's talk about the Skeeter FXR. So let's first talk about fit and finish, or excuse me, fishability. So as I talked about in video 1 or 2, I have some bias on Skeeter. I ran Skeeters for years. I have some negative bias and some positive bias, which I talked about in the earlier videos, and I'll talk about that again here today. But so right off the bat on fishability, the rocker button trim switches and lights on the front deck, I love that. There's two things up there. I wish they were turned straight. I know why they did it. It fit nicely in that corner so you don't step on it when you get in the boat. But I love the rocker switches. One of the things you guys heard me talk about, I want to be able to trim my motor up and down with my feet. And I want to do that because I may get a fish up in the trees or up in the grass, and I want my motor completely out of the water so I can go get him. And if I got to do that and push that button at the same time, that's a problem. So from a fishability standpoint, I love the rocker buttons. It's got a super clean front deck, something Skeeter's always done really well. The front deck's nice and wide. The boat's really stable. It's got those Skeeter sponsons across the back. Those were done years and years ago. And one of the things they do is they greatly help with the stability of the boat. It's a largely traditional box layout. Big rod box on the port side, big center box, big box on the starboard side, and then a secondary box behind the starboard side that actually is the bottom of the front box, but there's a tray that sits in the top that you can use as your day box. There's another day box in the floor, and I didn't talk about this. If you lift that day box out of the floor, there's actually hull access right there too. Not sure what that's for. If somebody knows, please add below. I suspect there's something that you need to access down there if you have problems, but I didn't pull it out and stick my head down there to see what it is. So if anybody knows, please add that in the comments. So I don't score good or bad for traditional box layout because some guys don't like a traditional box layout. Like a lot of Bass Cat guys, a lot of Phoenix guys like having those two small center boxes. I like having the one big one. I love the low gunnels. It's just a really clean look. It makes the front deck look even bigger than it is. And then the other thing I talked about on here. Abracadabra, baby's gone. So I love the low, and I know if I apologize if I'm repeating myself, guys. I love the low gunnels. It makes the front deck look huge. Really, nothing negative on the fishability standpoint. So I scored it a 17, excellent. Nothing was greatly different than anybody else. Just scored an 18 or a 19 or 20. Maybe that thing's not out there. But as I said, I'm going to stick to my scoring until I see something that I say, oh, that's completely different. I'm not going to score anybody above a 17. Fit and finish. So it's got good looking carpet. It's padded front deck. Boat feels solid running. It's got big comfortable seats. Now, they're big. They're not sports car looking or feeling seats, that wrap around seat like you get in the Phoenix or the Bass Cat or even the Ballistic. But I got to tell you, if you're a big dude, those seats are probably going to be less comfortable than these seats. I found these seats really comfortable. You're probably going to slide around in them more than you would in one of those wraparound style seats. But I liked them. They're a very comfortable seat, and I would think in rough water they'd be a very comfortable seat. There's good leg room in the boat. It's a big boat. Dual live well pumps, you heard me talk about that. That gives me a backup, right, if I have an issue out there. Good rod box setup. I love the rod boxes being finished fiberglass with the C-deck floor, no carpet. Something we realized when we did the Vexus review. Now, if you remember in the video, when I closed the ice chest lid, I said, well, that's different. It looks like an ice chest lid, and it had seals, and actually reminded me of a Yeti ice chest. And so I called a couple of guys who run this boat, and they said it is the best ice chest they've ever had. It's got a true light ice chest lid, and they believe it also has similar insulation around it. And they said it will really keep ice super cold. And one of those guys has run 2 other boats that we've already reviewed in the past. So he knows ice chest like I would know ice chest, or you would know ice chest if you run other boats. So apparently it's a great ice chest. Negatives on this boat. So as you recall, I asked 6 different fiberglass shops, what are the 3 best built boats that you see? Because again, they tear boats apart, or they cut boats apart that we tear up. And are there any boats that you're seeing non-impact challenges with on boats? And so I've put on here some negative feedback. Nobody named Skeeter as one of the 3 best built boats, which really struck me odd. And one in particular said that they had seen some issues, and I'm not going to go into them. That's something that probably before you buy a boat, you should research yourself. We've all got big fiberglass stores around us, but I did have some negative fiberglass shop feedback from one fiberglass shop about Skeeters. And maybe it was one boat he saw, and look, everybody puts out a lemon boat, but I just wanted to note that on there. And down there you see at the very bottom, I still harbor some bias from my Skeeter, from having rub rail issues, from screws coming out, from just nicky-nacky stuff that drove me crazy for a $70,000 or $80,000 boat. So I dinged him a little bit in fit and finish for both that feedback I had heard, and I also heard some feedback from a guy who had significant scratching issues on his boat from the boat cover going down the road. Now, it was one of those flat finish boat colors, which I've been told are really show scratches badly or easily, but it is what it is. So it does not have a C-deck flooring option, which is funny. I think they have it in their bay boat options, and they've got it in their rod boxes. I would expect to see that from Skeeter somewhere in the near future. I think that's the way boats are heading, but it's not there yet. It's a single live well. Now, by the way, anywhere you see an asterisk, I don't ding them for points, but I made notes to myself here. So I had to remember what I wrote down there. And then I put on there rod breaker latches, which are those hooked latches. And I had several guys say, I run those in my Triton and I've never broke one. I've broken 2 rods on those. I tried to demonstrate it in this video, but the video was so bad because of the narrow perspective it didn't come out. In both cases, I was in Moon Pie's Triton, and on that back deck, I laid my rods in the co-angler spot and opened that back deck box. And when I did, exactly what you just saw that pin did happen. It went up and it hooked under that open. So what, again, I had rods laying there. I opened that back box, which meant I had flipped that claw handle open. And when I closed that box lid back, I had a rod hung up. Pow, broke a rod. It's happened to me twice. So I don't like those lids. And I put another note on here, and I don't ding them for it, but they've got slam latches on some other boxes, so they've got the technology. Why not just put the slam latches through the box? On a $80,000 boat, that can't add $100 of extra cost. I think if they have the technology with the foamed in lids and the lifted aluminum lips around the boxes, why not go ahead and use slam latches throughout the boat? And then I've already talked about it. I have a little bit of bias on this boat from my history with it. But I'll tell you, even if I didn't have that, based upon the fiberglass shop feedback, no C-deck flooring, I would have only scored this boat a 15 on fit and finish anyway. So 15, which is, by the way, still good, right? Performance. So it's got really good lift for a big boat. It is a dry riding boat. My boat was a great boat. I never felt like in my ZX250 I could get in water that anybody else could go somewhere I couldn't go. How about that? Had a good hole shot as it was propped. And I'm going to say it had average speed for a 21-foot boat. It's slightly faster than my Ranger, but my Ranger's on the very slow end of 21-foot boats. My boat's a little bigger than this boat as well. But by the way, also remember this boat is significantly heavier than their competitors. 200 to 350 pounds heavier than their competitors. and it's very drivable at speed. In the high 60s, you're not fighting it. I mean, you shouldn't, but you could turn loose of the wheel in the high 60s, and this boat's going to just hold its track right where it is. Gosh, we love hydraulic steering. For those of you who never had old cable steering, hydraulic steering is the cat's meow. So, now the negatives on this boat. And I talked about this a lot in video 1. This boat's going to require both a learning curve to drive it in big water and some skill to drive it in big water, especially I believe in trailing seas, because you got to mess with that jack plate to hold that nose steady at low speed. So from a performance standpoint, that's a problem. It's a problem you can get around, but I'm comparing this to other boats I'm looking at. And I can see getting frustrated in conditions where I've got my load set up differently than I did the day before or the last time I was in the boat, and fighting that thing in rough water. And the last thing I want to be is out there in 4 and 5 footers and fighting how I set my boat up to run down the lake. Again, I noted average speed for a 21-foot boat, and it's part of the same thing, but difficult to hold the pad at low speed without getting that porpoising. So there was nothing that overly impressed me with the performance of the boat. And there were the problems I saw in the low speed of the boat and possibly in the rough water ride in the boat. So I still scored it a good, but I only scored it a 14 from a performance standpoint. So great on the fishability, not as good on the performance standpoint. Okay, amenities. So something that Skeeter's always done really well. So the rod box setup, you could run the port or the starboard rod box as a rod box, and you could even get rods on the sides of the center box. The dash will accommodate a 12-inch flush-mounted graph, but what's interesting is, my understanding from the Skeeter rep is, they don't flush mount units anymore in the dash at the factory. They all come with a gimbal mount. I think that's probably the way everybody's going to go, but I guess you could flush mount one in there if you wanted to yourself, but I don't think you're going to get it from the factory that way. They're going to gimbal mount them, which actually makes them, I guess there's good and bad in that, right? It's way easier to take it out and put it in the hotel room, but if it's dash mounted, I don't have to take it out and put it in the hotel room, or I never have. So it's got really good prop and tool storage back in the sump. It's got a driver's cleat. I didn't show you that, but in the video, if you look, there's a little silver button behind the driver's seat. If you push that, that's a pop-out cleat. It's got that net storage in the middle box. It's got good rod straps, not the best we've seen, but good rod straps. It does have ventilated storage in the boat. If you've never had that, it's great. You hit a button and it circulates air through your boxes to dry your stuff out. It has a USB in that little box on the side where you can charge your phone, and there's also one on the front deck. And I started thinking about that. Right now, I probably wouldn't use that very much, but I'm seeing more and more guys use iPads Bluetooth to their graphs. And I started thinking, I guess you could set it up on the front, put a mount up there, and plug your iPad in so that it's powered all day long. So it's just a good idea. I mean, it's kind of like your house, or specifically my boat barn. When the guys wired my boat barn, they put power outlets everywhere. And I remember thinking, what are they doing? Well, they knew exactly what they were doing. They gave me power outlets everywhere, and it's incredibly handy to have. So kudos to Skeeter for that. It does have a remote drain plug option in this boat. I think it's standard. Matter of fact, it is standard. Great sump access. I love how easy it is once you get it open. And you'll see on here somewhere, I love that split back deck option. That's a great idea. I actually like that better now that I've seen it than I like the removable deck option in the Bass Cat. I like that split deck option. That's great. I love the little phone pouch by the seat. That's a great idea. I stick my phone in a cup holder, or I put it back in my box where I can't find it. Bunk, on a nice day when it's not raining, I can stick it right there next to me, and I know exactly where it is when it rings or when I hear an email come through. And then I haven't talked about this in my other videos much, but one thing I do like, and I don't score them because I've not scored anybody else on this particular item, but there is one of those Perco jump switches. So if you don't have one of those, you can do this with another technology, but it's just a flip of a switch if your cranking battery's dead, and you pull power off of your trolling motor batteries to crank your big motor. So negatives on amenities, it's the old battery straps we've talked about. The O-crap handles could be better. The one between your legs, if you're wearing gloves, it's not big enough. And the one on your left hand is far forward where you have to lean forward in rough water. An engineer needs to go riding around in 3 and 4 footers one day at 50 and 60 miles an hour, and they'll understand what I'm talking about, and they'll rethink how they're letting my co-anglers hold on, or my wife, or this guy in another couple of years hold on inside the boat. The seats do not adjust up and back. I'm a little spoiled on that. I really like that. 2 more things that don't get scored positive or negative, but it is a single fuel tank. I've told you guys I prefer a dual fuel tank. And it is a single live well, even though it does have 2 pumps into the live well. So on amenities, we scored a 17. That's pretty much as good as anybody has scored so far. Dude, you're not getting on that desk. So 17 from amenities, which is a score of excellent. Okay, trailers and other stuff. So the trailer step, these are all have become kind of price of entry on this cost of a boat. You got a trailer step, got a swing away tongue, good winch, and a good jack. You just got to have those in a nice boat. It's got LED light, backup lights. This boat's got great lights throughout. It's got torsion axles is the way Skeeter's chosen to go. You got good dealer access in most of the country. For us in East Texas, we've also got access to the factory not too far away. So if you really had an issue, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most from the lake up to the Skeeter factory in Kilgore. It's got, they make their own trailers, which I put it on here. I don't score it. Not many manufacturers are making their own trailers anymore, but you see I put on there one throat. It's the old joke, there's one throat to choke. If something breaks, Skeeter's not going to go, oh, it was easy trailer. It falls on Skeeter and they're going to fix it. And I kind of like that actually. The negative on the trailer is there is no parking brake option, which I've become spoiled with. I don't use it a lot because I put it in the barn, but when I travel, I love not having to steal a rock somewhere around the hotel, always around their sign and their landscaping to use as a chalk to keep my boat from rolling off. So the scoring on the Skeeter, I scored a 79. It's a good, almost an excellent. If they can resolve some of those performance issues, this boat would score into the 80s and would be scoring an excellent. So, okay, contingency money. So, $5,000 for a win in a qualifying Skeeter. Guys, I've really struggled with their real money. I've been on the website. It's really hard for me to figure out exactly which tournaments are qualifying events. I've scored this tournament. Now, obviously Bass Champs, there's good money. There's $5,000 if you win a Bass Champs tournament. It doesn't look like it includes Texas Team Trail. What Skeeter said to me is a dealer can sanction an event. I just didn't feel like I got a real good answer on some of these. They list a ton of tournaments, and so my belief is it's a pretty good program. I scored it a 17 excellent, but it's not easy. It doesn't do like the other ones where it just lists all the circuits and says these qualify. Got to be 60 boats in the tournament. I believe, obviously Bass Champs is. It didn't look like Texas Team Trail's on there. Outlaw Outdoors is on there. So there's some contingency money available, and it's good money, but again, I never got a complete comfort level that I understood it. The 2 things that I did knock it a little bit on is it's expensive. It's 79 bucks, and it's only for 2 years after the date of purchase. And we're seeing more and more manufacturers do this, where they're really being, like Ranger for years has been 3 or 4 years from the model year. And we saw Skeeter, and I think Bass Champs did it as well, and please don't hold me to that, but they're getting a lot more restrictive on how old a boat. They want you buying new boats to qualify for this contingency money. So I scored them a 17. I believe it's a pretty good program. I know several guys who've won money through the program. And if you're a Bass Champs guy, it's a great program, right? Because you're going to get, there's payout down the line to Bass Cat guys as well. I think top 3 places, if I remember right. So anyway, that is the contingency program. That's my scoring on the Skeeter FXR21. I really like the boat. I wish the boat was a little faster, and I wish it was a little bit easier to drive at low speed. I know boat manufacturers tinker with hulls a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some of this get worked out in the near future. But that's what I score the boat right now. Next few boats, as I've already mentioned, will be coming up. This weekend we've got the Outlaw Outdoors the Outlaw Outdoors Last Team Standing tournament. So I'll have a lot of fishing footage up for y'all next week. I don't know that I'll have a boat review up for y'all next week, but I will do my best to get another boat review up for y'all in the next 10 to 14 days. So working at the full-time job too, so bear with me, guys. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. And remember, if you've not seen my list for Christmas presents, I'll post it right up there in a link at the top. It's great to share with your loved ones with some cool stuff that I have, I want, I like, and or one of you guys said, check this out, this is a cool thing that I want or that I bought for myself. So check that list out as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys again early next week with the practice and then the tournament from this weekend on Samurai.